So the topic for today is awareness of dreaming is the real function of God's teaching. So it's in keeping with the function, right? We're remembering ourself, but in order to remember yourself, an important first step is to become really aware of the dream that's going on right now. The dream that's going on when you dream at night, that's one dimension of dreaming. But the course is also your whole life is involved in a dream. And it's awakening from that dream to come into the reality of who you really are as a child of God. And I recommend if you'd like to get a little deeper into this, that you read chapter 27, section 8, the hero of the dream, and chapter 31 is the section 5, self-concept versus self. Both of those two chapters have got a lot to say about what we're going to be studying. If you're a part of a study group, you might want to see if you can talk about those sections in the study group. So we're going to start off, we always start off with looking at the lesson for the day, at least briefly. And in this particular case, it just so happens that this lesson 23 fits in perfectly with what I was planning on talking about. Even it just coincided very nicely. So it says, I can escape the world I see by giving up attack thoughts. That is so important. Giving up attack thoughts, giving up the idea that there is a problem out there in the world, and I want to focus on that, and I want to attack that, and I want to say something about that, right? So it's seeing the problem and then talking about the problem and even amplifying the problem. And I think I'm not going to get into politics, but you understand what I say to politics. There's so much going on at the moment that we recognize there's a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, a lot of folks are upset, a lot of people are afraid, and there's a lot of attacking that is going on. So we've got to find this place inside ourselves which remain centered and remain calm and remain peaceful regardless of what's going on in the external world. So the idea for today is the only way out of fear that will ever succeed. The only way out of fear is going to mean getting back in control of yourself, capital S self, as that self relates to your real self, capital S self, which is namely who you are in the eyes of God. Not the little self that you are as an ego, and the little ego self is going to get really, really, really plugged into the dream. It's going to jump right in there to the dream, like the dream is real, and I'm caught in this dream, and I'm going to dream this dream along with the world dreaming. The Course is asking us to get to a higher point of view, a place above the battlefield where you can look down and see the dream, but don't be caught in the dream. Because every thought you have makes up some segment of the world you see. That's because you're consistently judging the world we see. So what would happen if I stopped judging the world? What would happen if I just kind of let the world be what it is, right? It is with your thoughts, that is your dream, that we must work if your perception of the world is to change. So again, the Course is saying you're all dreaming, but we've got to look at this dream in order to recognize that the dream is not reality. This is not what's really happening. This has nothing to do with heaven. Heaven is completely removed from the drama of the soap opera that we have collectively created for ourselves. If the cause of the world you see is attack thoughts, you must learn that it is these thoughts which you do not want. There is no point in lamenting the world. Going on to the next slide, there is no point in trying to change the world. It is incapable of change because it is merely an effect. A little bit later, I want to say something more about I'm currently reading Nexus by Yuval Noah Harari, and this is a point that he's making there. He doesn't have anything to do with A Course in Miracles, but just this whole point of realizing how caught we are in whatever drama is happening at the time. This seems to be happening in a larger sense. But there's indeed a point in changing your thoughts about the world. Here you are changing the cause, the effect will change automatically. So I have to go back in my mind and say, can I be at peace regardless of what's going on in the external world? If I can still hold my center of my being and be at peace here, regardless of what's going outside, I'm doing good. I'm doing it. And so the Course says it's really about our stopping the complaining and the irritability and the fault finding and all anger is here, anger, annoyance, aggravation, attack, because that just amplifies it. That just makes it all the more real. So the Course says, as you probably know very, very clearly, anger is never justified. Attack has no foundation. Never, never, never is that the right choice to be making in the world. All right. So the idea for today introduces the thought that you are not trapped in the world. You're actually not trapped in the world because its cause has changed. When you recognize that you are a child of God, son of God, daughter of God, that's who you are in truth and reality. And reality is what matters. It's not the dream that matters. This change requires first that the cause, that is the dreamer, the ego, be identified and then let go. What we're identifying is our self-concept. So we get very attached to the self we make up. And the Course is saying the self that you created is not your real self. The self that you are is the Son of God. That's who you are in truth. That's how God recognizes you. That's how God sees you in your pureness, in your wholeness, knows absolutely nothing about your story because it's a story. Just like you know nothing about the dream. We have, each of us, psychologists say 6 to 8 possible dreams a night or cycles of times that we're dreaming. And they're all dreams. And it doesn't make any difference what the dreams are. Very few dreams are ever remembered or ever recorded or ever, and yet all this dreaming is going on. 8 billion people are having 8 serious sets of dreams at night. My God, it's 64 billion dreams, and none of them are known. And they don't have to be known because it's not important. It's just what's going on within that particular framework of that particular mind. So Jesus then has to say, I can escape from the world I see by giving up my attack thoughts about. Now, this is an exercise for today. So we're not doing it at the moment, but if you did the exercise already this morning, or if you started over the course, I don't know where you are. But when you really want to, then to stop and think of somebody you have attack thoughts about. I have attack thoughts about our president. And if that's so, well, then how can I give up these attack thoughts? All right. We are still at the stage of identifying the cause of the world we see. That's very important. We're identifying the cause of the world we see. Where is that ego inside of me that is involved and plugged in to the drama, the soap opera I see? It's interesting in this day and age, literally see it on the screen because it's on the screen, it's on your television, or it's on your computer, wherever you want to look. We are still at the stage of identifying the cause of the world you see. When you finally learn that thoughts of attack and of being attacked are not different, you are ready to let the cause go. Notice it's thoughts of attack and being attacked. Either way, if the thought is that you're being attacked, then that puts us in the position of lesson number 36, I think it is. I am a victim. I'm not a victim of the world I see. I think 31. I'm not a victim of the world I see. And yet it's going to look a lot, and we like to be victims. We like to be victims because then we can complain. Then we have something real to complain about. So the ego can go from two different extremes. On the one hand, I'm a victim of the world I see. On the other extreme, still within the ego framework, I am a conqueror of the world I see. I am on top. I am the number one A1 dog, right? These are the extremes, right? Truth is somewhere in between there, there's no extremes at all, and I can just be content with being myself. Ken and Gloria only wrote one book together, and that book was called Awakening from the Dream. Ken told me that after he had done this book with Gloria, that he went to her excitedly. I can just imagine him excitedly doing that. Oh, he got the idea for the next book, and then he wrote 34 books, right? And the next book in 34 years, so it's a book a year. He went to her very excited about doing this, and she says, "Oh no, no, you write the book. I'm just going to edit." So she was out of it. She didn't want to have to go through all that work, but she'd be happy to edit and read it. And often she would read other books for Ken. He wouldn't have time to read it. I think you should read XYZ book. All right, and she would read it just to help him. So the title is Waking from the Dream. What I'm suggesting is that a first step before awaking from the dream is to awaken in the dream so this we call lucid dreaming, or having a lucid life in which I see the dream within the dream, and I just make again a simple decision not to be trapped in the dream, not to be a victim of the dream I see. So this is Edgar Allan Poe simply saying all that we see or seem is but a dream within a dream. So this idea, this is ancient idea. It goes way back to the pre-Socratic philosophers. It's not just the 19th century or the 18th century, right? Course in Miracles says all your time is spent in dreaming. Your sleeping and your waking dreams have different forms. That's all. Their content is the same. Sleeping dream, waking dream. So at night, we have our night dreams. And in the day, we have our daydreams. So this picture looks like a lady who is looking out a window, engaged in daydreaming. All right. Says, while you see more value in sleeping than in waking, you will not let it go. So we'd like to get in there. We just continually get caught up in our story, your story, right? I keep rehearsing the story, going over again and again. And dude, what do you do when you wake up in bed? Let's say you wake up in bed in the morning and you lay there and you're not going back to sleep, but you're not ready to get up either. And you got half hour, so to just kind of lay there. And there's a good chance of maybe going back and like reviewing your dream, not the dream you had during the night, but the story, the ongoing concept of the self, that particular dream. So the Course is saying we got to let that dream go too in order to experience reality. So this is Shakespeare. All the world's a stage, as you know, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrance, and one man in his lifetime plays many parts. And if you're familiar with this from Shakespeare, Jock, and As You Like It goes on to explain all what the different parts are that one plays in the course of a lifetime. Or again from Shakespeare's Tempest, we are such stuff as dreams are made of, and our little life is rounded with the sleep. So I just, once in a while, I like to point out certain kind of historical stuff. Uh, I think it's sort of interesting that the King James Version of the Bible was being translated, was published in 1611, and Shakespeare's died in 1616. So that means that the Bible was being translated into English. It was the second time, I might add. The first guy got in trouble with the church. And but this one went through because it was dedicated to King James nonetheless, right? And this was the Protestant Reformation was really getting started at this point. Things moved much slower then. Martin Luther attached the 95 Thesis on the church door in Wittenberg in 1517. All right. but he wasn't excommunicated until 1521. So just sort of think about the date there. We're now at 2025, so 503 or 4 years ago. This is just exactly 500 years ago that this was all happening. Ken used many of Shakespeare's plays as a backdrop for the workshops that he did. So the Bible says that a deep sleep fell upon Adam, and nowhere is there any reference to his waking up. So that's what the Course means when it says the dreaming of the world. So the dreaming of the world is the dream that we're all dreaming collectively, right? And that collective dream you can see capsulized in a few minutes at the end of each day on the evening news. This is what's going on. Of course, as the world has not yet experienced any comprehensive reawakening or rebirth. Such a rebirth is impossible as long as you continue to project or miscreate. That's what we got to stop, the miscreation. It still remains within you, however, to extend as God extends his spirit to you. In reality, this is your only choice because your free will was given you for your joy in creating the perfect. Now, when the Course starts talking about your creations and your creations being given to you for your joy in creating the perfect, it's really just talking about the extension of love. So it still remains within you to stop judging the world, to stop analyzing the world, to stop it, and just love the world. Just love, and then there's joy. There's joy in it. There's joy in loving the world rather than joy in attacking the world. Does that really make anybody happy? I don't think so. I mean, I don't think anybody's really, you can't be attacking and happy at the same time. You can be loving and happy at the same time, but not attacking and happy at the same time, because the attack represents some sort of disturbance, some sort of disquiet that is going on within you, as opposed to letting all things be exactly as they are. You are at home in God, dreaming of exile, but perfectly capable of awaking to reality. Is it your decision to do so? You're perfectly awaking to reality. You can do this, right? But you've got to decide to do so. We're going to talk a little bit more about decision making in a moment, about how important it is to be able to, you are constantly at choice, right? So one of the books that I like to reference once in a while is Pilgrim's Progress by Jon Mundy. And that was very, very old. That was 1678. It's really regarded as maybe one of the first novels. There's a few books that's which one was really the first novel. And it's a story about a guy named Christian who's going on he's going to a place. He's going to heaven, actually. He's trying to find the celestial city. And he's got a book with him, by the way. And that book, keep in mind, 1678, the Bible came out in 1611, right? So it's just beginning to be small enough that people that could actually have a copy of it. And he's reading the Bible while he's on his way to heaven. And he goes through all kinds of difficulties to get there. But every time he goes through a difficulty, he loses one of the burdens that's on his back. He's carrying all these burdens on his back. And the burdens have names. He goes through the slough of despondency, the valley of humiliation. These are all the kind of ego places that you would visit. But as each place is gone through, then your freedom from whatever it was that was carrying so heavily and depressing you, now that's going to be gone. All right. So you recognize from your own experience that what you see in dreams you think is real while you're asleep, yet the instant you wake, you realize that everything that seemed to happen in a dream is not happened at all because it was a dream. You do not think this strange, even though the laws of what you awakened to were violated while you slept. For there are things you can do in a dream that you couldn't do in ordinary daily life, like you could fly in a dream, right? You can morph from one place to another place. You're on an airplane, You're on a train. You're just why everything can change just in a moment. Carl Jung says, those who look without dream, who looks inside awakens. That's how we're trying to do. Don't get caught in the dream, in the world's dream, or your personal dream. There's two different dreams. There's the world's dream, and then your dream about the world. That's why we go inside to find out what's important really. Now, I want to talk a little bit about Yuval Noah Harari and his book Nexus, which I got next to me here. Almost got it done, chapter 10. So Harari is a professor of history at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. He's the author of several New York Times bestsellers, including Sapiens, Homo Deus, and Nexius, and a couple more. So he practiced Vipassana meditation for 2 hours every day. Think about it. He does an hour in the morning and then an hour in the late afternoon. That's a lot of time devoted to meditation. But he says, I meditate to clear my mind from stories, illusions, and fictions. It is a way for me to lift the curtain of illusion and get in touch with reality. That's the same thing the Course is talking about, getting in touch with reality. Almost the same words, but I don't think he's a student of the Course. It isn't easy because everything you don't want to look at comes up. Now, that's very important, that everything that you don't want to look at comes up. So I've shared with you before that I thought I had the pleasure of being locked into a room in the hospital with COVID for 24 days back in 2021. And I didn't take anything with me except my cell phone, which had the Course on it and a book or two and workshop or two, so had something to listen to. But I became if you step away from the world for a while, Dave, I see this with us today, Weinrich. Also, Dave has recently visited a monastery, and I went to that same monastery twice. The last time was in 1969. And a part of that is also just to step away from the world. There's no television, there's no electronics, there's nothing like that. And maybe just spend some time walking, or just spend some time in the chapel praying, or just stepping away from the world begins to give you the opportunity for things to come up. Now, that's good. I mean, the junk can come up, the repressed stuff that you haven't wanted to look at because you've been so darn busy, you just haven't had time to look at that stuff. That can now begin to emerge because there's nothing blocking it from coming up. And then you could maybe look at some of the selfishness that's been inside you, things that you might regret that you did, wish you'd have seen things differently. And that's good only in the sense of providing an opportunity of cleaning that out of the psychic system. One of the advantages of kind of doing that is that you then say, okay, rather than getting caught in denial, accept responsibility for whatever those things are. But they're in the past, they're done, and now something else has to happen. It's called forgiveness. And we forgive myself, forgiving ourselves for having got caught in those things. And then there's purification, and you're feeling better as a result of that, and you can begin to come out of it. Harari says, don't turn your life into a story, especially a drama or a tragedy. Stay with the reality of life. So there's stories and then there's stories. By stories and then there's stories, I mean there's life and then there's tragic lives and really traumatic lives, very difficult lives caught up in poverty and relationships that are chaotic and not having enough money and all those kinds of where the story so dominates the mind that it's just there all the time. You wake up with it and you don't even want to wake up with it, and that's I mean that's how you escape into a drug or something. You escape in some other way so you don't look at it. Well, you got to look at it. That chapter 21 I am responsible for what I see. I choose the feelings I experience. I decide upon the goal I achieve. Everything that happened to me, I ask for, and I receive as I vow.